This episode of Lords of the Storm is brought to you by our sponsors over at Patreon, where you, yes you, can also support the show. Just head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm to become a patron today.
Heroes, gather tribute and earn my favor. What do you say? Are you ready to begin?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and first and foremost, I would like to take this time to apologize to all of you for putting you through what I did last week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
When
it
it
great.
comes to bumpers in music, I
don't know why you need to apologize.
I am
Nope.
so
Bad.
sorry.
Totally
But
Yeah.
I am back. I am powering through, and it's good to be back. And this is episode, by the way, 110 of Lords of the Storm. I'm your host, Greg Parker, a.k.a. Gizmozord, joined, of course, by Mr. Kevin Multizord Ellis and Ryan K. Popstar TBK Zord Reader. And on this week's episode, we're going to recap Heroes of the Dorm, Lords of the Lane Returns, as well as HGC play. We discuss some Cassia for our Hero of the Week, and Multi and myself face off in a duel of epic proportions as we force a 5v5 fight between artificial intelligence to prove our prowess in the latest Lords of the Draft.
Yes.
Yeah.
But first, let's see how the other Zords are doing. Multi, how are you doing so far?
I'm doing well. I feel like you're just as sick as you were last week, but you came on anyway just to prevent TBK from doing the bumpers this time.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Absolutely. No, and I hate missing an episode, and
Well, yeah.
if I think I'm going to be able to control it to not blast people's ears out, then I'm good to go, and I just wasn't confident last week.
Fair
Well,
enough.
But,
for
yeah.
some reason, it just feels like we haven't had an episode all together for a while. I don't
only been
think
a
that's
couple
quite
weeks.
true. Yeah, but yeah, it's just
I was gone the week before last on the family vacation.
it's
and
been
then
a month.
Gizmo was gone last week, but that's it, I think.
No, it
Weren't we all
was
together the week prior
last
to that?
week. You then Multi, you were gone 2 weeks in a row.
Just one.
No, because you
it
were
two?
you came in halfway through,
Yeah, that's right.
or not
That's
halfway
right.
through.
That's
It was
right.
actually towards the beginning.
It was near the
That's
beginning, yeah, but I was just
Close
running behind that day, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that was the last time. We're good.
together again.
Although it was funny when I came back after the vacation, everyone was like, "Oh, hey, Multi, long time no see." I'm like, "It was just a week, but all right."
It was literally a week.
Just
back.
we
I'm
missed your
flattered you missed
presence
me.
so much.
Apparently, I don't
It's
know.
good to know you're loved.
Anyway,
TBK, how are you doing tonight?
I am actually on the tail end of being horribly, horribly sick. I got the old influenza, so that's been destroying me since Sunday afternoon. But I feel like I'm finally almost out of it. I'm actually going to be able to go back to work tomorrow because I'll have been 24 hours fever free. So, yes.
Well, good. That's the title of this episode is Healthy 2.0.
there you go.
Not really. What?
We're all healthy. Seriously, guys.
Yeah.
It's not true. Gizmo is still dying.
Yes.
How about for as far as gaming this week? So for myself, it is tax season, and so at my current job, that means it is nonstop. It's crazy time. But
I remember that life.
yeah, no kidding. But
Of course, I
this
experienced it from the other end, the IRS. But anyway, go on.
this last weekend, Multi and you and I got to hop on with Kyle Ferguson for the Team League stream.
Mm-hmm.
And just tip of the hat to you, sir. Your Malfurion was ridiculous.
Yeah, thank
And,
you, thank you.
We're crushing. I played mediocre, but it's all right.
Hey, but you were our solo laner. It was good. It was.
I
good.
was. I was the hey, Gizmo, go off by yourself and take
Go
care of
do
things.
stuff.
And I
Yep.
did. That was good, right?
So,
But yeah, a lot of fun there. I have and I have to admit here, because I have been failing hardcore at this, my plan was to finish my placement matches like 2 weeks ago. And then, of course, 2.0 came out, and I spent a lot of time in the open beta. And then everything has happened this last week. So I haven't been able to get in and finish my placement episodes, which I'm kind of upset about. But I'll also say I'm kind of in the period now. I still enjoy getting into the beta. And as far as like my hero levels and stuff, I'm kind of waiting for 2.0 to come out.
Yeah.
But I still think that
I think a lot of people are in that boat.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. Like it's I'm not avoiding playing. I think I'm just kind of taking this time to still explore beta and then enjoy other things, because I know when 2.0 comes out, it's going to be, pedal to the floor, like full speed ahead. So,
Right.
How about you, Multi? What have you been up to besides the Team League stream?
Well, I think kind of playing off what you said there, I think we're not on the precipice of something just huge like that. You tend to lag about a bit. And then when the new thing comes out, everyone just hops in. They're super excited and going nuts, which is happening in Hearthstone for sure. We've got the Ungoro expansion out now. And I just have to shout out to, again, Ray C., the guy who did the coaching session with me back in January. It totally blew my mind with that. He has come out with a guide to his, it's the Quest Warrior. It's the Taunt Quest Warrior deck. And I've linked it in our Discord. I've tweeted it out so far. So you guys have to check this deck out. Like, I am not kidding. I read his guide, and then I looked at the list, and I was like, oh, well, I think I have most of this. And then, oh, man, I was missing a few of the epics. I disenchanted all of my wild cards tonight to make this deck, and I do not regret it yet. It's so good. Like, it screams tier 1 as if from the top of a mountain. It's that good. And so, but man, disenchanting those wild cards felt like I was doing something permanent. Like, I literally felt like I was getting a tattoo.
I mean, that
like,
kind
there's
of
no
is.
turning back.
That's rough. I don't know if I could do that. Like, even though it's like a digital card game, like the collector in me would cry.
Well, see, my collection was a little low anyway because I switched accounts and blah, blah, blah. It's a long story.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's that. But at the same time, yeah, it literally felt like getting a tattoo. It's like, I can fix this. I can undo this if I want, but it's going to be real painful and probably cost a lot of money. So anyway, it's super fun now. The meta is all over the place in Hearthstone, and you don't know what you're going to come up against for the most part, unless it's a rogue. But but yeah, it's been good. And of course, I've been doing some heroes. That Team League stream with Kyle was awesome. So if you guys haven't checked that out yet, I know he's got VODs up now and stuff. So it's a good time.
Awesome.
Glad he had us.
Maybe I'll check out Ungoro here during this little lull. TBK, how about you? Have you been getting some gaming in during your sick days, or have you just been not?
I mean, up until Sunday, I was getting lots of heroes in. And then there was a good Sunday, Monday where I was sleeping more. And then I woke up and then I just went back to bed. So lots of sleeping the last few days. It was good, though. And I've jumped back into heroes. I got all my placements done. Placements were rougher than I would have liked. And of course, we did some of the replay analysis in master's class for those. So I was almost plat 2 last season. And after placements, I went to gold 2. So that was pretty rough. It was a rough thing of placements. So onward and upward right now for that. So I've been trying to get more Hero League worked in, and I'm making some progress on that. And then I started Team League as well, because honestly, if I could do that on just constantly, I would pick Team League over Hero. I would never touch Hero League. Like, that's just how much better Team League is if you can find a good set of people. So shout outs to Bo Schwartz, Gorath. He's been on here before, and Blackout, and a few other guys. We've been doing a little bit of Team League here and there, and 6-2 right now. Nice. So Team League placements just about done. So I'm excited to hopefully grind that somewhat during the season as well, just because it's more fun.
Oh, yeah. No, I think anyone in the right mind would prefer to have like the full-on 5v5 team league action. But no, congrats. That's a good record so far. Be interesting to see where you actually end up placing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for or Saturday we ended up like 2-3 in team league, but like 4-3 overall. But we
Right.
had this round we're playing Masters. This next round we're playing a bronze, a silver, a master, and a platinum. Oh, this round we're playing silver and gold. So it was kind of
wonky.
It's
And I mean,
interesting.
we were all different ranks too, so I think
Yeah.
it just was having a hard time to
I say
place us.
you guys were all pretty spread out. If I remember the 5 you're playing with, so it's one of those things. It's nice that you can just play with whoever, but at the same time, and we've talked about this before. The matchmaker can only do so good if you queue in as, say, a gold, a plat,
Yep.
a diamond, a silver, and a bronze, or
Right.
something like that. So,
Absolutely, I agree. Well, let's go ahead and get on into the show here. So, TBK, why don't you start us off and let us know what's going on in the store sales?
so this week we have Johanna and the Centurion Johanna skin, as well as the very cool Desert Queen Zagara skin. Also coming into the shop, we have the 2017 Heroes of the Dorm bundle. And this is the 5 heroes that I believe won the last game and the skins that were used. And so you can go check that bundle out and get it for a discounted price. And then, of course, the Cheerleader Kerrigan bundle. So Kerrigan, the Cheerleader Kerrigan skin, and the 2017 Heroes of the Dorm mount are available. It's a really cool skin. It's kind of one of those collectible things, so definitely snatch that up if you're a Kerrigan fan. It's a pretty cool skin.
Yep, I'll be getting that for sure.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
All right, and Multi.
You're a
what
big
about-
Kerrigan fan, though.
Yes, in fact,
So.
I am. What do we got going for the free hero rotation?
Oh, let's see. We've got Anubarak, Jaina, Karazim, Muradin, Nazebo, Ragnaros, Raynor, Sonya, Uther, Zarya, Morales at 5, Greymane at 7, Zeratul at 12, and Medivh at 15. Yeah, pretty solid group. We've got Medivh, of course, at the top end there, and I feel like there's probably some people out there who still haven't actually given him a try, and here's kind of your chance to. I was on the fence about whether or not I even wanted to buy him because you guys saw how good I am with those portals, man. Just sick portals, left
Super
and right.
sick.
I mean, sick in that
portals.
they were literally disgusting, and
I
I
actually
mean that
took
literally.
one and I went into the middle of the enemy base.
Yeah, that's just how you got to do it sometimes, man. But anyway, so I would think that if you've been playing Heroes of the Storm in general enough to be at 15, you could at least get in there and try them out. Which I myself need to do some more as well because there's some work needs to be done in that category.
For sure. An interesting thing here, real quick. I want to get your guys' opinions on it in case other people are thinking about doing this. So, Cheerleader Kerrigan, Daniel J. Newman in chat said he's thinking about going into the 2.0 and to get it with shards when that launches. What do you guys think? I have a feeling this is going to be one of those seasonal things. I don't think it's going to be on the skin list when 2.0 launches.
Asmo Dunk is, right?
Well, this
Seasonal
is
thing?
also a kind of a
Well,
promotional thing as well, like
Yeah.
just for the event. So it's possible it might not be.
Oh, man, I wondered because that's. I think to be safe, I'm just going to go ahead and.
If you want
buy
to be
it?
safe and you're wanting to get it, I would get it now. But I think you can purchase Asmo Dunk right now with
Okay.
no
Well, but
problems.
Asmodunk-
I'll double check on it. And he was the promotional thing for the last Heroes of the Dorm. So
That's
Yeah.
kinda
you might
true.
not be able to get the mount. The mount I think is exclusive to the bundle. But
Right.
I'm pretty sure the skin itself will stay around.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I mean, if Asmodunk is still around, which I'm pretty sure it is, Cheerleader Kerrigan should stay around. I'll double check that while we
Yeah.
go through some of this other stuff.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and hop on into some of the news. All right. So, first up, of course, this last week, Heroes of the Dorm in Las Vegas finished up here, and UTA took it 3-0 convincingly against LSU. I almost said
That's right.
Irvine, but it was LSU. And it was interesting. So this was really the first time I sat down and watched Heroes of the Dorm this year. I had kind of watched portions of matches prior, just kind of in passing, but I went ahead and watched all of the semifinals and finals here. And some pretty good matchups overall. Watching LSU in their semifinal round, I thought, hey, maybe they'll pull a game or do fairly well against Arlington. And unfortunately, that just really wasn't the case. Arlington was just on another level. But
They wanted it.
Not only undefeated literally the entire tournament.
Yeah.
They did not drop a single game.
And they, of course, I mean, they have names that everyone recognizes from Heroes for a long time.
They're about as close to a pro team as you can get without being in HGC.
Mm-hmm.
And some have said they wouldn't be surprised if they went pro. They busted their way into the HGC, or at least some of the players. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna try and take the team to the Crucible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. They should absolutely,
because they've been playing in the Open the last several weeks. They only recently kind of dipped back a little bit because of all the extra dorm practice. But I would be somewhat surprised if they didn't end up being one of the two teams that were facing the relegated HGC teams when the Crucible hits.
Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting topic as far as, because, professionals, if you were competing in HGC, you weren't allowed to compete in dorms this year. So it's kind of, interesting to see the potential dorm winners have a chance at then joining the HGC fairly shortly after. So regardless, it was, some fun matches to watch. I think my personal opinion, I imagine Blizzard probably isn't super happy with the overall viewership numbers that we saw. I didn't see it peak above like 5.6K. And
that's about what the peak was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the quality, while it was better, I think, than what it started off as when Dorms was being streamed, it still wasn't Twitch quality, we'll say. And it is what it is. So it was an experiment. We'll kind of see how they react to it, what their plans are for next year. But it is done.
And maybe by next year, Facebook will have beefed up their stuff a little bit more and gotten a little more popular as a streaming platform. Like, we don't know. We really don't know what'll come on between now and then. So
it may have been less an experiment and more a contractual obligation.
Yeah,
also possible. Yep.
Honestly, I don't know. I would be extremely surprised to see it exclusively on Facebook again next year. Honestly.
Yeah.
I would be somewhat disappointed, personally, to see it exclusively on Facebook again sometime next year. So
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. But the event looked good. The hype was good. The games were fun to watch. I will say that, when one team dominates this hard, I've got to think that there's probably someone in the crowd who thinks, oh, well, this isn't really a fun match to watch. These guys are just owning the other team. But at the same time, I think it proves to just your layman that doesn't really follow the scene or know much about the game that this is a game that takes a lot of skill, and you can absolutely work really hard, put in the time, put in the teamwork, and just dominate like this. So, I mean, to me, if I was completely out of the blue, didn't know anything about Heroes of the Storm, was just showing up in Vegas for fun, I would have come away with that, and I think that's notable, at least.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely some positives to come out of it. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the quest completion animations that were overlaid, used in dorms. So maybe we'll see some of the stuff like that transfer over to HGC. So,
despite the streaming hiccups, and I definitely had issues on my end with freezing. And I Chromecast everything. And of course, there's really easy to do with Chromecast with Twitch or with YouTube, because you just hit the little button. Whereas with this, I had to open a Chrome tab on my computer and bring up the web page and move it over. And there were several times I had stuttering. There were several times it just kind of straight froze. So it was a little disappointing after how many weeks of ramp up that there were still those type of issues on the stream, but the live event itself looked incredible.
It did.
Like it's one of those I wish I could have been there because like there's a lot of energy in that place. Like the setup for it looked fantastic at the arena. The casting desk was really good. I mean, it looked like a very well put together live event, which it has every year, and so that was kind of cool to see them make sure that end of it at least was super super professional. I felt pretty good at the end of it too. I ended up ranking 404 on my bracket. So, and FYI to anybody who did a bracket and you got in the top 500, you should have your free cheerleader Kerrigan bundle applied to your account already.
Very cool.
So, FYI, if you're in that top 500, you can go check that out. I didn't get a pop-up or anything for it. I just went and checked on it and said I already owned it. So, if you're wondering where it is or when we're waiting for something to pop up and say you got that, go check your account. That might be it.
Okay. Fair enough
Cool.
here. Well, as that tournament wraps up, we have an announcement, and that is Lords of the Lane. Is this 6?
This is 6.
Wow.
6, yeah.
This is 6.
Okay. Lords of the Lane 6 is finally coming back, and thank you all for your patience. It is going to be May 7th. That is a Sunday at noon Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central. I don't believe we have the site quite set up for that, but we'll get that set up here this week so that you guys can get on. Of course, patrons will have first access to sign up, and then we will release it to the wild. But that, of course, if you are new joining us here, that's our 2v2 tournament. That is middle lane only. We have some videos of it on our YouTube channel from previous tournaments if you guys want to check it out. It's always a blast and super exciting, and we will let you know. Stay following our Twitter. We'll update you guys whenever you can go and sign up for that.
Yep, and patrons, watch your Patreon emails because you'll be getting a little heads up ahead of time.
Correct. And then also in another tournament here that's coming up, one of my buddies over from Convert to Raid, Mr. Sharku or Bradley Archer, this is kind of his child that he's been nurturing and thinking about doing for a while, and it is called the Gathering Storm. So this is going to be a multi-community tournament that is, I guess a quick way to explain it, it's kind of the tournament to determine which community has the best HOTS team. And what you can do here, we'll have a link in the show notes. You can go up, sign up a team. It is 5v5 tournament. And when you sign up your team, you are going to select which community you want to be a champion for. And the communities are A-Move TV, Frog Pants, Geekly Incorporated, who does like Drunks and Dragons, as well as a ton of other amazing shows. And then Convert to Raid / Lords of the Storm. We're kind of putting with them because I do Convert to Raid. So you can pick which organization, group, community you want to represent. And then this is going to be June 3rd and 4th. The 3rd, I believe, is going to be the community tournaments. So this is, you're going to play in a bracket against other teams in your community. And then the top 3 teams from that, from each community, will advance to that Sunday. And it will be, again, the top 3 teams from each playing in a bracket to determine which community has the best team.
Such a cool idea.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. And he's putting a lot of work into that. Again, we'll have the website in the show notes. I believe that also has the Discord you guys can join. But we will keep you guys updated on that as more information is announced. What else we got here? We have some 2.0 beta hot fixes. They have continued to make some item rarity changes, along with increasing the gold cost to reroll epic loot chests to better capture the value of those chests. I don't know what they increased it to. Do you guys know?
So I went to check on this beforehand, and of course there's a Reddit thread on these patch notes, and the highest comment I saw about it said it didn't look like it was any different than from 250. So maybe it didn't apply correctly or something, but they don't actually, for some reason, have the amount listed.
Huh.
I don't know why they wouldn't list the amount.
That is weird.
In the notes. That seems kind of weird. I think the big I think these notes have started opening some worries, and I wanted to make sure that we address this, because if we look at this thing, there's 3 items that have changed from rare to epic. There is 8 items that have changed from epic to legendary, and 3 of those are, of course, very popular announcer packs: Abathur, Brightwing, Murky.
Yep.
And only 3 items have been changed from epic to rare, which are just the battle beast, just the regular old giant mounts.
And by the way, I don't think we ever mentioned this, but it's something I saw when I was going through it. The texture updates on some of these older items, like the battle beasts and stuff, and even like Wonder Billy, like they updated those models and they look awesome.
With 2.0? That's
Yeah.
cool.
I don't know if you guys have checked that out, but they look really good. I mean, not as good as another mount. It's still a battle beast, but it's a better looking battle beast than what we have.
Better battle beast.
There's been so many cosmetics. I honestly haven't had the chance to look through all of them in super detail. I think the big issue with this, and what's worrying people, and what I think is fair in a lot of ways, is a lot of these rarity changes are completely, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Blizzard mentioned in the last AMA the cool factor. And so you could, I guess, apply the cool factor to, say, the Abathur, Brightwing, Murky announcers. Sure, those are going to be popular announcers. Those are going to get a higher rarity. It kind of makes sense in some way. But personally, I feel like it would be nice if Blizzard developed at least some sort of framework that they can use to kind of show people what their thinking is behind setting certain items or certain characters. Because like Kael'thas and Tracer going from epic to legendary, why those two? They're not like necessarily super popular. Yeah. And there's a lot of other 10K heroes. Like why those two? And so right. I feel like it would probably be in Blizzard's best interest, especially just to quell community concerns, rather than just saying, yeah, these are arbitrarily changing from epic to legendary. To maybe say, okay, guys, here's kind of our thought process. Because right now they have a very rough approximation of skin rarities, right? If they have like themed abilities, if they have new effects or voiceovers or whatever, that may be the difference between a rare and an epic, or, fully redone everything is a legendary. That's kind of what we're used to right now. So even if that doesn't transfer directly over to the new 2.0 system, right? It'd be cool if they released at least a general framework for item types. Even if for some like sprays or whatever, this is a cool spray, so it's legendary. That's fine. It's a spray. It matters more, I think, for skins and for mounts and maybe for announcer packs.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to see a little structure put around it so that people can understand, even if they don't agree, they can understand at least a little more why Blizzard is making an item a certain level. It's because, this thing's got effects, or this particular mount actually took a lot of extra artist time, so that's why it's a legendary, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I completely agree, especially when it comes to heroes. And then, I mean, they kind of had this structure previously when, mentioning spell effects and sound effects and stuff when it came to skins. So I do think that is much, much preferable to have a system in place like that. However, I will say I can understand, and I don't agree with it, but I can understand from a business perspective here, maybe not wanting to put that system in place to try and mimic one without having it set in stone, because once you do that, then you can't, what if you have something down the line you're wanting to make some sort of exception? Well, now we have
And
the
I mean,
system in place, so we have to
and I
put
mean,
this here.
you don't have to. I don't think they necessarily need to have it that set in stone, but I would like to see at least some general guidelines.
Yeah.
Whether
I
or
think
not
this is
that all of them conform exactly to that.
good point. I still think this is kind of a growing pain with transitioning into the new system because once the new system's in place, anything new coming down the line, I mean, when they release a legendary skin down the road, it's going to very plainly be legendary. It's going to just flat out come out with all those changes to probably spell animations, voiceovers, that sort of thing. And so I just think we're going to see that framework with the new stuff, but I think they're having a hard time putting the current material into some sort of framework as well. So I think it's going to be a temporary problem we're experiencing here. But I mean, this is a money issue for sure. And I know that some people are complaining that with all these items increasing in rarity and thus kind of price, there's the concern for people's wallets if you're a big Tracer and Kael'thas fan. And really, truly, the heroes are the biggest deal to me, too, because if you don't own these heroes and you're wanting to just get them out of the chests, I mean, those are aspects of the game that actually impact what you can do in the game. Like, all the cosmetics are fun and nice, but, I mean, if someone really wanted to play Tracer but really wanted to free to play after this system, it's just going to be harder to do. So that's actually the point I'm most concerned with.
Mm-hmm. All right, here, of course, we also had the Heroes timeline revealed earlier today, and this is kind of neat. It's Chromie-ish themed, the Sands of Time, but it goes through from the beta, and it just kind of hits on a lot of the big points from release. So beta to launch, Eternal Conflict, Hallows into BlizzCon, Winter turns to Spring. A lot of information, and it kind of puts in this perspective how much this game has changed. Because even though there's a ton of stuff here and a lot to dig through, there's also a lot of stuff, kind of the smaller things, missing from it. So it's been quite a ride. And I personally kind of wish they put a shout out to, Artifacts in the beta?
Oh, yeah.
I actually tweeted this earlier, that I was a tad disappointed they didn't highlight some of the wacky fun things from the tech alpha and the timeline too. And so I did get a bunch of responses to that. And of course, Artifacts was one of the big things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I kind of wish they would have given a shout out, because I don't even, that was kind of the first break I took from the game, because those were
you weren't in for that week.
It was like a week, and I never got to experience them necessarily.
This was fantastic for those of you that weren't around. So Blizzard put in a system where you would buy these artifacts for gold, and you could level up the artifacts, and the artifacts actually added initial power to the heroes, kind of like the League of Legends rune system.
Yep.
And so, it not only was it completely broken in the fact that you could add certain artifacts to certain heroes and just make them silly and completely broken to play, like adding a attack speed to like Arthas or like a heavy hitter or something and making them do stupid amounts of damage, or movement speed to someone who is supposed to be slow and causing them to be super strong. Arthas, actually, again, an example. You don't want
Arthas dominated.
You don't want fast Arthas. It's super scary. But it was so weird because everything was like a gold cost, and you had to level up the artifacts. So some people didn't have artifacts that had artifacts at lesser levels. So you'd go into the game with an inherent disadvantage starting out. I have never seen, and I could be wrong, Something may come out in the future, but in all probability, I don't think I will ever see the community rally against something so coherently. Just literally the entire community came together and said, "This is
No.
terrible. Stop it."
Like if you
And-
think the
yeah.
salt on Reddit concerning master skins and loot boxes is bad,
It's
it
absolutely
was
nothing.
nothing. It was
Yeah,
nothing.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It was so bad that Blizzard they had designed like an entire UI around this. Like it was a whole new system. Like this was like legitimate. This
deal.
wasn't just like a throw in thing. They had designed a whole system around this. The feedback was so like cohesive, and like the entire community in Tech Alpha was so against it. They literally pulled the system and reverted it after 1 week of being out and said, "We're sorry, that was a horrible idea."
And it was great. It would just be awesome to have kind of seen a little shout out to that, or for people to just kind of to read up on it that never did experience it. And it's Resurgence of the Storm being pointed out in chat room. All those little things.
Well, and
Acid
in general,
Telhan,
Huh?
remember that Li Ming talent
yeah.
lasted for like a week or two?
Oh.
well, that was much later, but yes,
Yes.
stuff like that. No,
Stuff
I
like-
mean, in general, I think they should have touched on the Tech Alpha some because it went on for some time before this timeline starts. So
Yeah.
I think Chromie just needs to up her game, and
Yeah.
But if you really want to go back in time and learn all this stuff, just listen to every episode of Lords of the Storm.
Did
go
we-
back to episode 1.
Did we start it in the
Sure.
Tech Alpha, or was
Yeah,
it still
I think
closed
so.
beta?
Yeah, I
Still
think
Tech
it was.
Alpha, I believe.
I think it was still Tech Alpha.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I definitely suggest checking this timeline out. It's a nice, fun read there. But coming up still on the calendar here. So the next thing is April 17th.
This is big stuff, guys.
Yes. April 17th.
Big stuff.
There's a new hero announcement as well as a new battleground announcement. And then a Reddit Q&A as well. I'm going to predict this is the announcement of an announcement. Kind of that's what
Yes,
happened last
that's
time.
what the last one was. Yeah.
So, which is kind of weird because this is the announcement, but I don't know.
It's an announcement of an announcement of an announcement.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Whatever they do this time will be what they do. Part of me thinks last time it was supposed to be the Q&A, and then there was the backlash, and they're like, all right, let's postpone this a week somehow, and they managed to do it.
It does say details unlock.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my guess is it'll be the week after, because that's how they did the Reddit Q&A last time. It said, okay, here's the details. It's taking place next week.
18th is the
Good.
launch event, 20th, new bundles, new program. April 25th, cinematic, Nexus Challenge
See?
2.0, and events where 2.0 is launching.
Cinematic. I'm
Cinematic.
so excited. See, I saw that the first time it came out. I'm so giddy for this because to me, and I may be hyping myself up too much, and maybe I am, but this screams to me, hey, remember that Varian Ragnaros cinematic we saw at BlizzCon? We're gonna get another one of those.
Hope so.
Yeah, and I imagine, I mean, obviously it's going to be themed or based around 2.0. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But
It's interesting. Yeah, it's
No.
still. Go ahead.
Oh, maybe they're redoing. Remember when Heroes launched, and we had that Heroes cinematic
Yeah.
with like
a new
the
cinematic.
5v5. Yeah.
A
Maybe
full-on high-quality one.
maybe we're gonna get another full-on high. Even if it's the same cinematic program they use for the Varian Ragnaros, because I for one think that style fits Heroes more so anyways than necessarily the super realism of the first one, even though that's super cool.
It is.
And
I could
it's
see
but
that,
it's a lot
though.
cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to make that. So I wonder if we're gonna get some sort of new like this is Heroes launch trailer, and they're gonna have all the mashup
That
fighting.
That's
again.
very possible because that happens in the other games semi-frequently when big things come out, like the expansions in World of Warcraft, and we've seen it elsewhere, StarCraft expansions, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's at least possible.
Yeah.
And to rehype everything for 2.0, what better time? That's very possible.
I personally, cost aside, because you are correct on how much it would cost to make like the original one again. I would love to see that one again with the newer heroes added in, and then also still have Diablo in it, but have the old Diablo,
The big
Diablo. Now that the new Primeval one is in it, finally.
Yep.
That would be really funny. I mean,
would be good.
I mean, of course, that's preferable because that is just so super high quality, and you're literally
best
like
in
watching
business.
you're literally watching a movie. But I was talking with some of their animation people at BlizzCon this last year, and they were saying how that Varian Ragnaros trailer was kind of the test for this new type of cinematic tech that is much, much easier to do and is still very high quality because it's not necessarily in-game stuff, right? It's kind of like the middle ground between doing something in engine and then doing something of like a WoW expansion intro.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So, I mean, if they can do more of those type things for cheaper and faster and fairly high quality, I'm all for more of those. Give me more of those. Like that was an amazing trailer.
It's still good stuff.
For sure. All right, TBK, why don't you go ahead and take us through the HGC here?
So there wasn't any HGC
What?
last weekend because it was Dorm, but we are getting it back this weekend, guys. Finally.
It seems, what has it been, like 4 or 5 weeks?
It's been a really freaking long time.
It has, yeah.
Like 1, 2.
I think it's been 5.
It's been like
including...
7 weeks.
What?
Really? No, it's not been that long.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh yes, and it is worth mentioning. Gold League did start this last week.
There was the Western Clash and the Eastern Clash in those.
Those count though.
But we haven't had But we haven't had the actual league play for 7 weeks now.
Regular season.
It's been 5 weeks since the Western Clash and 3 weeks since the Eastern Clash.
That checks out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm ready for it to come back. Like this has kind of been the highlight of my weekends. Just being able to, pop Twitch on and watch the teams that I love play against each other on a scheduled basis. And so this Friday, April 14th, starting at 4 p.m. Central Time, 2 Pacific, I guess. We're starting again. Gale Force Esports versus Team 8. A nice big one.
Good one to kick
Yeah,
off.
Right
good
out of
to
the
start
box. And then Naventic against B-Step.
Yeah.
So that's going to be Friday. Then Team Freedom versus Superstars on Saturday, followed by No Tomorrow versus Tempo Storm, and then finishing up Sunday with No Tomorrow versus Naventic, and then Teammate versus Tempo Storm, which that sounds like a really fantastic end of the weekend match as well.
As awesome as the Gale Force Teammate Tempo Storm matchups against each other are going to be to watch, for me this week, the two I'm going to be watching are Naventic versus B-Step and No Tomorrow versus Naventic. No Tomorrow and Naventic obviously had been struggling, kind of the weaker teams. See if they took this time to, figure something out to improve, because both of those are going to need it, and even B-Step in a sense to avoid that Crucible coming up here. So.
Yeah, I was going to say we're leading up to the Crucible, so those are the teams to watch for that, because that's going to get real interesting.
Yep, you got five weeks to lock it down as far as records before that Crucible. And don't forget, this is the Probius patch, so maybe we'll see some Probius. Doubt it.
Maybe. We'll see. Just for the standings right now, technically Tempo Storm is on top with 6-1, followed by Teammate with also 6-1 record. Gale Force 5-2, B-Step 4-3. And then your bottom four is going to be Superstars at 3-4, Team Freedom at 2-5, and then both Naventic and No Tomorrow at 1-6. And so these Naventic and No Tomorrow are going to be the two that are really going to have to step up and prove something to show that they shouldn't be in the Crucible matchup.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody expected Niantic to be there.
No, certainly not. But they've had plenty of time to practice, plenty of time to scrim. We really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Before we move on here, we want to give a shout out to a Patreon, Mr. Jason Riddle, who has once again earned his Zord title. You have been deemed worthy of bearing the Zord title. Welcome to the Zord Lords. Welcome, Mang Zord, to the Zord Lords. Again, we really appreciate all of our patrons out there. If you'd like to support the show, there's no obligation to do so, but head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm and, give what you can. It's nice. We appreciate it.
It is.
Ketchup packets. All right, let's go
Providing
ahead.
us all the ketchup packets.
Let's go ahead and move on into this week's Hero of the Week.
Hero of the Week.
All right. I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of these. I guess it was, Probius. Here,
Right.
So,
Yeah, whenever Probius was.
yeah, and there hasn't been
Makes
a
sense.
ton of reworks. I imagine we'll probably be doing one of these for old Uther before too long.
Oh,
once
yes.
that's locked in. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
excited for that.
No question.
Very much.
I've got to say, I like that we kept that bumper. That's the one we needed to keep right there. Just the goofy Hero of the Week.
That was totally my my sentiments on that one.
Yes, exactly.
It's okay. Fine.
Yeah, you're the one who made it.
I know.
Anyway.
I'm not proud of it. Not my proudest moment. But this week is Cassia, who, of course, entered the Nexus this last week here and was in the 2.0 prior. And I personally love Cassia. I think she's super, super fun. She's in an interesting spot here. She's a really interesting hero to come out where I think if you have played previous auto attack heroes, you can probably pick her up fairly easy. However, she's kind of one of those ones that people are trying to find her spot right now when it comes to compositions and builds specifically, because she does have a lot of potentially viable builds here based on the situation. So we're going to we have a build, but we're going to be kind of covering two builds here, going through one mainly, but also mentioning the Q build, which in all honesty is, I think, a funner build, maybe an easier one to pick up right off the bat because there's less activatables, but they're both going to be viable in certain situations here for those of you wanting to check her out and maybe have been struggling to find a build, or maybe we'll be able to help explain why to pick these talents in certain situations. But of course, she is the Amazon from Diablo 2, and let's hop right into it here. TBK, what do we have for her trait?
Her trait is really her make or break for most of her kits. While moving, it's called Avoidance. While moving unmounted, Cassia gains 65 physical armor against heroic basic attacks, reducing the damage taken by 65%. And so I believe there's a 0.5 second grace period between not moving that the trait stays up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very long. So you have to be pretty much constantly moving to keep this trait up. But when you do, auto attack heroes do absolutely nothing to you. It might as well be, tiny feathers brushing your shoulders.
Especially Tracer. Oh yeah.
Oh, she counters Tracer so hard. It's not even funny. Like the first match, the day after she came out, I was in a quick match with a Tracer and a Cassia. Of course, there were Cassias on both teams, and the Tracer just kept raging because it's like, why am I not doing any damage to this person? Like, because she had no idea. Apparently, the person had no idea what Cassia's trait was or anything. So she would go in and go crazy, and Cassie would just move around, not take any damage, blind Tracer, and Tracer would have to back out because wasn't doing anything.
Yep.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, so obviously she's a counter to some auto attackers here, but I was matched up against her in a lane as Nazebo over Team League this weekend, and I figured, she's gonna charge in here, throw my wall up, melt her down, but she has some good, just solid poke, and I struggled much more. So she's not necessarily just gonna be a hero you want to take against auto attackers. But let's go through.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that everyone auto attacks. Like, even Abathur, maybe even especially Abathur. So yeah, that's just something to consider. You're saving yourself from some damage, no matter who you're against. Technically,
it is worth noting for sure, as we're on the trait, that as auto attackers go, she has pretty short range.
That's true.
And
too.
so you do have to be much closer to the action than, say, a normal auto attacker like a Rainer, like a Vala.
Yeah.
So you need to keep that in mind too, and that's one of the strong points of her trait. If you have to learn to get good at that trait and stutter stepping and moving around with her, or you'll be losing a significant amount of value, and you'll be putting yourself at a much higher risk because of that shorter attack range.
Yep, and to do even more, like your full set of damage, like with all your abilities and everything, you've got to get even closer. So, something to think about.
Yeah, and that's some of the positives and negatives of certain builds, and one of the reasons I like the Q build, but we'll get into that. Let me go through the basic abilities here real quick. We have on Q, Lightning Fury. It's a 4-second cooldown, 30 mana, where you hurl a javelin, deals 182 damage to the first enemy hit, and then splits perpendicular into 2 lightning bolts that also deal 100% damage to enemies in the path. W, Blinding Light, 15-second cooldown, 70 mana. After half a second, blind enemies in the target area for 2 seconds. This also has a passive where Cassia deals 15% increased damage to blinded targets. And then Fend on E, 10-second cooldown, 50 mana. Charge at an enemy, and upon arriving, channel up for 1.5 seconds, dealing 81 damage to enemies in front of Cassia every quarter second. Deals 50% reduced damage to non-heroes. Multi, what do we got for her first heroic?
First heroic is going to be Ball Lightning, and it's on a 40 mana, 60-second cooldown. You throw a ball of lightning at an enemy hero that bounces up to 6 times between nearby enemy heroes and Cassia, dealing 208 plus 4% scaling damage to enemies hit. So, and we'll kind of get into this when we cover the heroics, though, but I know that when I first saw the two of them, this is the one I was the least excited for. But honestly, I mean, it's a little comp dependent. We're going to get into all this, but I like it. And I think that if you take the other one, you are technically trading away some of your max damage. So I think there's a place for it.
Oh, for sure.
And then her second one here is Valkyrie, which I do personally still love. 90-second cooldown,
It's cool.
70 mana. You summon a Valkyrie that rushes to Cassia after 0.75 seconds, pulling the first enemy hero hit, dealing 197 damage and stunning them for half a second at the end of the path. It also knocks back all other enemy heroes in the way. So good for pulling that backliner forward, getting the person trying to escape. Good to note, this does not pull through terrain and such things, so you need a clear path to do so, minus heroes and whatnot. So let's go ahead and hop into the talents here. I think to not make this confusing between the two builds, we're going to go through one build first, and then I'll kind of go down later quickly through the Q build just to kind of explain the differences in why I prefer the Q build here. So for level 1 TBK, what are we going to be going with for the build here that you posted?
So for this build kind of focuses more on her W, and this gets the most value out of your passive extra damage for blinded targets. So we'll start off by going True Sight, and this is a quest, and damage blinded enemy hero. You damage blinded enemy heroes 80 times with abilities or basic attacks, and once you do that, you increase Blinding Light's duration by 1 second, and you increase Blinding Light's passive damage bonus by 10%. So 3-second blind with 25% extra bonus damage once this quest is complete. Pretty dang good.
It is.
Pretty substantial.
And I will be the first to admit here, I'm actually really interested in trying this build specifically. I have seen a lot of people post it and heard good things about it, but I'm one of those
Yeah, it's
people,
good.
I kind of get stuck in my ways, and it's hard for me to change, which is one of the reasons I suck at this game, but I don't suck. I'm a mediocre player. Multi, level 4.
Level 4, we've got a couple options. We're going with either Ring of the Leech. Cassia heals for 25% of the damage she deals to blinded enemies. Or Inner Light is another possibility there. Whenever Cassia is stunned or rooted, Blinding Light is cast at her location, and then that effect has a 6-second cooldown. And then there's also a passive attached to that. The Blinding Light's radius is increased by 25%. So obviously you're really only taking Inner Light if you see a need for it. I mean, someone that's really stunning you or rooting you, and you just expect for that to happen in the middle of a group fight, in the middle of a laning phase. It's so good against like the Butcher, who just charges you, and then you just drop it on his face and don't care anymore. Arthas, some of these others, so pretty good. But then Ring of the Leech is one of those ones, and the reason we kind of tout it as the primary of these two is that you can really just always get value from this. And it's surprising the amount of healing you can do, because this is really any blinded enemy. We're not just talking heroes. We're not just talking whatever. And it's not just healing off of auto attacks like we've seen from some of the previous, life-stealing builds and other characters. This is everything. So if you are kind of half health, just sitting in the early laning phase, which is what you're doing at level 4, right? A lot of the time, you can get a lot of value out of this. So it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. It surprised me with how good it was, actually.
Yep. Level 7 here. Also kind of situational, but we have Surge of Light, which after taking 520 damage with the avoidance active, you can activate it to deal 260 damage to enemies around her. And again, this is not just hero damage incoming. It can be minions, merc camps, heroes, all the above. So you can kind of get that stacked up strategically before a fight. What is a good comparison as far as damage around her, as far as area?
It's not huge.
Is it like Johanna's Condemn, or is it like Burning Rage?
It's bigger than Burning Rage.
Yeah.
But I'd have to see. I don't want to try and describe it and have it be wrong, but it's not gigantic, but it's enough to definitely hit melee heroes and such, and minion wave and whatnot around you.
Okay.
And help out with the wave clear a little bit, which, I mean, depending on who you're laning against, can be kind of tough to do. I mean, that fend really does work, but you have to be gutsy enough to get it off, right? So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that, again, this is a situational one. We also have War Traveler, where Cassie gains 3% movement speed every half second while avoidance is active up to 15%. It does reset when she stops moving or uses an ability. And then Impale, which I actually tend to enjoy this talent when the situation occurs. Enemies below 40% health take 50% increased damage from Fend. Level 10 here is, of course, going to be situational. Ball of Lightning is going to be fantastic for melee heavy comps. This build in particular, whenever it's for your blind, you're going to be getting in there doing some more damage to allow that ball to bounce back and forth. And then Valkyrie can also work in this build if you're going up against certain comps. Maybe not a frontline heavy, but also works great for that Q build there. But
Valkyrie's interesting because it does have a decent amount of setup time.
It does,
and that's where I think a lot of its problems fall into, and why Ball Lightning has got such a higher pick from, say, a Hot Slog's perspective, is it is fairly easy to avoid just because of the setup time. So if you take that, make sure you aim it properly. Make sure you use it coupled with potentially someone else on your team CC. Mm-hmm. Not a terrible idea, because someone can set Arthas can set you up, and then Valkyrie pulls them in. It's harder to pull off.
It is. One of the reasons I like it, and I think a lot of your first thought on this is, okay, you can pull somebody back from a distance, so this is going to be, main use a hero that is low health trying to escape. And that's situations where, yeah, absolutely, it's good to use it there and, to finish off a hero, but that's the expected way to use it. So they're kind of, expecting that to come at them to avoid it. I personally like and have had a lot of success here. It's easier when this is in comms because, again, a lot of people aren't going to expect it. Just, team fights with me going a Q build, even if they are frontline heavy. Sometimes I don't go ball lightning because I'm doing more of a poke build. Kind of using this towards the beginning of a fight to just get that backliner, even if they're full health, and pull them through the team towards your team. If you guys have a stun or something, it's great to get rid of that poke person on their team at the start of the fight, so you don't have to worry about it. So
well, and it's displacement in general. Like it's kind of like a little bit like Gust with Falstad in the same sense that you can just pull off these mid-fight plays that just change the dynamics of the fight. I mean, yeah, of course you're pulling the hero that you've grabbed to you, so you don't necessarily want to grab certain heroes and yank them up into your line, but maybe there are situations in which you would. I mean, you guys are citing grabbing backliners. I've had a couple games where maybe they don't grab the most optimal target, but they're still out of position. You could still set it up with stuns. You could maybe have a Tassadar force wall or something like that, and just kind of disrupt the fight before it starts. Pull them out of the range of their healers, and even if it's a tank, I mean, you're just setting up the fight differently. Maybe the tank goes in the fight at half health instead of full health for this process. So, I mean, there's lots of applications.
As you mentioned earlier, too, be very cognitive if you pick this ability of terrain, because it does not pull through terrain. And I've had many times where you're trying to pull someone back from near a fort or something, and they catch on the edge of the fort, and it doesn't bring them all the way back. It can be a little finicky.
Yeah.
So be very careful how you're using it when you're near terrain.
It's kind of unclear of how much has to nick a corner, because I've had situations where they have kind of slightly moved around terrain. So I don't know if it's like it has to be exactly half of their hitbox or half of the casting graphic has to be. So it's kind of weird there. But yeah, just be careful with it.
We need some Science of the Storm on this one.
Yes. It's TBK level 13.
So level 13, we're going to look at Seraph's Hymn, and this just kind of adds to the blind build, adds to your extra bonus damage you're going to do to blinded targets. Not only do you reduce Blinding Light's mana cost from 70 to 40, your basic attacks against blinded enemies reduce the cooldown of Blinding Light by 3 seconds. So this allows you to get very high uptime on your Blinding Light. And higher uptime means more damage and potentially more healing if you took Ring of Leech.
Okay. Level 16, multi.
16, we've got a couple options yet again. Either Martial Law, which is where basic attacks against stunned, rooted, or slowed enemy heroes deal bonus damage equal to 3% of the hero's maximum health. You could see the usefulness there. We've also got Pierce. The primary missile of Lightning Fury now pierces, but splits only when hitting heroes. So again, this is one that I personally am a fan of Pierce. Obviously, it really fits with some of the Q builds and that sort of thing, just because it's more value out of your Q. But it's one that you can just always get value out of. I mean, it's free damage. It's kind of like the Jaina talent. I'm forgetting the name, but where Frostbolt pierces the first target. Yeah. Like you're literally doing double Frostbolt damage when you line it up perfectly and hit 2 targets. So, I mean, it's just useful in any situation. But I mean, Martial Law can't go wrong. Certainly, if you have a comp that sets up a lot of stuns, roots, slows, that sort of thing, it's good stuff.
If you have an Arthas on your team, you should never not take Martial Law.
Yeah, for sure.
Just letting the Cassia on my team the other night know.
Oh yeah.
Yes. You always take Martial Law at 16 if you have an Arthas on your team, because someone will always be rooted or slowed. Just that's freebie. That's freebie.
Let's see here. And level 20, we have Infinite Lightning, which of course is going to make Ball Lightning now bounce indefinitely and cooldown reduced by 4 seconds every time it hits an enemy hero. And then also Titan's Revenge, where Cassia's basic attacks now ignore armor, and her basic attack range is increased by 2, which is nice because, again, her attack range is a little bit shorter here. So TBK, why don't you, before we get into the Q build, kind of give a brief overview here of what this build excels at in kind of the play style.
So in a lot of ways, it's not quite as much of a poking play style. Although with Cassia, unless you go full E fend build, which is powerful in its own right, but extremely risky, which is why we're not necessarily recommending it for solo queue play. You have to have a team comp built around the fact, because every time you go into fend, it's very powerful. It's a charge. You get a decent area. You take some of the talents, you get huge damage, but your trait is not active at all whenever you're fending. And so for this type of build, you want to look to be getting the maximum value out of your blind, and not even necessarily having to focus it on auto attackers. Because remember, you can blind mages and you still get that passive bonus damage from your W
and
against
healing
them because they're blinded. And then healing if you took the level 4, and stuff towards the quest if you took the level 1. So I just overall, it's a very good damage build while just using auto attacks, so much less skill shot oriented. And it, like I said, it still does a decent amount of damage. And at the end of the day, especially once you hit 20 and get Titan's Revenge, that damage just ramps up that much more, and it also becomes safer to do.
Yep.
So that's why I kind of like this overall build, because it gives you a lot of self-sustain that other builds don't necessarily do. Because once you have Ring of Leech and once you get your W talents going, you can actually heal for a fairly decent amount that you normally wouldn't think of otherwise, just because, especially after 13, once you get that Seraph's Hymn and your basic attacks against blinded enemies reduce blinding light's cooldown, there's almost no time you don't have the ability or already have somebody blinded.
Yep.
And anytime you're attacking somebody blinded, you're doing that bonus damage, and then you're getting heals too.
And that's every type of attack. It's not just auto attacks against blinded targets. It's just flat out Cassia
25% of the
more
damage. Yeah, she deals to blinded enemies. She heals for.
And I think that was kind of my problem initially playing her, was that I would save the blind for logical times in which you'd want to blind someone. But no, I think to really get the most out of your damage, you want some uptime on that. So
yeah, and if you don't go this build, that's true, right? You can't, if you don't go this build, you can't really spam your W that much, and you really should save it a little more for a key target or a key auto attacker or someone you want to specifically, okay, I need to do extra damage to this person right now, type thing. But with this build, especially once you hit level 13, your W becomes much more spammy, and this allows for a lot more consistent damage potential and a lot more negating of enemy damage, because remember, blinds count to any basic attacks.
Yep.
So
for sure. So now I'll kind of go through Q build here. A lot of the talents are going to be the same, but kind of explain. I'll go through the talents here and then kind of explain why you might like this build for certain situations. So for level 1, we go Thunderstroke, which it's a quest. After hitting 20 heroes with Lightning Fury, it's going to increase its damage by 75. And then after hitting 40 heroes, you gain a second charge of it, and the mana cost is reduced from 30 to 15. So obviously, the first thing to notice is you are immediately going skill shot kind of build here. So if skill shots are something you don't like or aren't comfortable with, this is automatically not going to be something you build that may not be for you. But it is a very good poke build here and kind of safe. Level 4, you can still kind of, it's very situational. 7, also situational. I do, if I can, I enjoy going Impale here because of my poke wearing enemies down. And then I really don't use Impale ever except for to dive in and finish people off here when they're below 40% health because it can do a lot of damage. 10 can be situational again. 13, Grounding Bolt. Lightning Fury slows enemies. No, I lied. That is not it. It is Thunder God's Vigor. Enemy heroes hit by a primary missile of Lightning Fury reduce its cooldown by 1 second. So now at this point, you should be finishing up, if have not finished, your level 1 quest. So you have 2 charges of it. Mm-hmm. And for each hero you hit, it's reducing the cooldown by 1 second. So while you don't have infinite Qs, if you are good with skill shots, you can spam this thing pretty darn good. As well as at 16, if you go Pierce, now that cooldown is getting reduced even more because the primary target can Pierce to hit more heroes and do more damage. And level 20 is also situational. So the playstyle kind of switches up on this. Like I said, instead of... It's not blinding based. Obviously, the blind is still useful. You'll want to use it on targets, like TBK said, that you're wanting to specifically target down or keep them from getting auto attacks in. Artanis is a nice, good one. Butcher. But it allows you to sit back, poke safely, keeping avoidance up. You're never really, again, diving in except to finish somebody off in safe situations. And it allows you, there's not really a lull time between cooldowns for this. So you're able to, it's very, very active. And if you play it well, you can get a lot of damage. And that's my play style here is the ranged poke. So definitely something to keep in mind. And if that's kind of your play style, go ahead and try that one as well. But both these builds are going to excel in their own situations. Have you tried the poke build much at all, TBK, or is this kind of...
Mm-hmm. I've tried it some as well. So my beef with it personally is that I don't feel like I enjoy the poke style as well. That's why I'm starting to get into characters like Jaina, Li Ming, some of these others as well. But I don't feel like the Q build pokes hard enough, if that makes sense. Like you're just using your one ability and hanging back and getting some poke off. Yeah, you're throwing in an auto attack and a blind every now and then, but like the early and mid laning phases, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not landing them as well as I should or something.
It's a less active build, especially compared to the first build we did, until you get later levels and more specifically finish the level 1 quest.
Yeah, 13 right. Between 13 and 16 is when most people are probably going to finish that quest. Unless, you're going at it hardcore. And that's whenever the cooldown reductions are coming in and the piercing. So it is definitely more of a late mid to late game build to where it can start dealing a lot of damage, especially, and this can do well in like heavy frontline comps as well, because Pierce is going, it's shooting off those perpendicular lightning bolts all over the place. Plus, if you're blinding multiple targets, then all 3 of those targets are taking the 15% extra damage. So it's definitely much later. I have had, some fantastic, hero damage games with this, but it is definitely a build you have to nurture and kind of wait for your moment.
Makes sense.
So make sure check those out if you like. If you guys have any other builds, of course there is an e-build as well. Let us know if you guys like that. Dang it, I let one through. Like that, or have had good success with it here.
Spoiler alert on the e-build: you take the e-talents. Just for a really compact version of it for you.
Yes, that is true. And that was perfect. Thank you, Multi. Let me get a cough out there.
Okay, good.
All right. So next up is also going to use this little bad boy here.
Oh, one sec.
I have to say one more thing about it.
What?
Oh, we should final tips.
Okay.
Yes.
Final tips. I have 2. Don't use your fend unless you're either wave clearing or you're finishing somebody off. Because if you're just using it to poke, you put yourself in a horrible, horrible position, like 80 to 90% of the time. because it zooms you to the person. Your trait is not active during any of your channeling time, and you are extremely vulnerable. Just think of your E, especially, and this is one of the reasons I like the level 7 Impale talent. Think of your E as an executioner, as a finisher. That's or wave clear, because it does do some decent wave clear as well. But think of it mostly as either a finisher or something to catch you up to somebody as they're trying to escape. Because otherwise, more often than not, it will put you in a bad position. And once you use that, you really don't have an escape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and she's not that sturdy, especially while her trait is not on. So be sure to be careful with her. Also,
and cancel it if you need to as well.
Yes, and you can cancel it if you need to. Sometimes I've actually, to chase somebody, I've charged to them, canceled as soon as I could.
Keep autoing,
to get closer. And that's
similarly, you
really
can
well.
use that as an escape. If you've got a few minions behind you, you can kind of jump to them, kind of like Illidan does with his Q. You know
a
what
little
I mean?
bit.
So,
And then one of the other big things is, and this is kind of in some ways what makes her harder in quick match comp. She's not necessarily good for every comp. She is much more of, I would say in general terms, a counter pick for something in the enemy comp. She's not like a damage I would lead with at all. She's a damage I would take when I wanted to counter a specific thing in the enemy comp. And I think her current win rate on Hotslaw, it's a little low for sure for a new hero comparably to a lot of other heroes that are out right now. And she is a little bit more niche as far as what she's good against, and especially, like I said, in a quick match perspective, not necessarily just being able to fit into every comp. She has a lot of good build variety, but just kind of take care if you're in a drafting scenario when you draft her that you're counterpicking something or you're playing to her strengths within your particular team comp.
Yeah.
Yep. And to your point there, I mean, it's kind of interesting, the hero design here, because you've got someone that has a trait that's just so good against auto attackers. And then you also have all these blinds built in as well. So I think this is something that kind of threw us off initially at the media summit there too, where we were looking at it and saying, like, do we need to stack this hard against auto attackers necessarily? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, along with your point, it's kind of mind-blowing and goes to show how well they do test these heroes. Of course, there's going to be some things that come out that are either way overpowered or underpowered. But when this was initially announced, I think, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but the overall reaction was like, holy cow, she's going to be crazy good. Like 65 armor when moving plus blinds. Yeah. Like, that's nuts. And it's just going to show that, she can be really good. And then people are, of course, still figuring her out here, but it's a really neat build.
It is. And the philosophy behind it, I think, is similar to what we've seen in some of the tank changes that we've seen as well. We've talked about this a little bit previously in a couple other episodes, but, the fact that she's in the game now to kind of counter auto attackers, that's just going to be her niche role forever. I mean, this is someone who you could see as a fifth pick in team comps from now until the end of the game, really, I would think, just because of the stacking against that particular issue. So yeah, just something to think about with even future heroes coming down the road. They may already have a counter in place.
For sure. Yeah, and kind of TBK's point, I don't see her being picked in a draft anywhere above like third, but most likely like the fourth or fifth pick.
Yeah, most likely after the second ban phase.
Yeah, correct. But my tip here is not going to be a helpful one, sorry, but just kind of along with all new heroes that come out and ones that we see kind of lower win rates. Don't be afraid to experiment with her right now, because like we said, there are several builds out there. There's strengths, weaknesses, and this is going to be a hero where I don't think, of course we'll see a better build come out, but I think this is such good hero design and talent diversity that it's going to be one of those ones that hey, this build may fit your play style better, and in reality, actually still be an extremely viable build for you. So test things out, see what fits for you. Now, we'll get into this. Lord of the Draft.
Oh boy.
Oh, man. So we've had me versus TBK. TBK won. We've had multi versus TBK. Multi won. Now it's Gizmos versus Multi's Mayhem. Am I
That's
remembering
right.
correct? All right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this one's going to be a bit different here because the draft system's been put into game. The drafting sites that we typically use aren't being kept up to date anymore, and I'm sure at some point we'll figure out a way to make this super smooth and just go in game and use it. But for this one, if you're watching video especially, typically you're able to kind of look at the heroes as we discuss them. We're gonna D&D this. It's gonna be pen and paper.
That's right.
Right.
Old school.
So
That's right.
It's gonna be interesting. And again, how this works, if this is your first time listening to this very interesting segment, this is where both Multi and myself, we're going to go through a draft, and we're going to draft these heroes for a team that we think, as if we were playing this specific game on this map with the current meta.
Like a legit comp.
Yeah, like a
Right.
legit comp. But the thing is, after the game, we are going to cast this match in AI, Elite AI versus AI. So the results of the game may not be what it actually is, but this is our fun way of testing it. And we don't have any say over what talents they pick, what silly things they do, but it's a fun way to do it. And
It's not just the fun way to test it, it's the only objective way to test it. Because, it's not like we're getting our friends together and having a little duel. Then you have different player skills involved and that sort of thing. This is just raw. What is the game and its AI capable of?
Yep,
And
exactly.
it's usually pretty fun.
So-
and by the way, I am the only one that's undefeated so far. 1-0.
You haven't
I
faced
know
me
that's
yet.
a small sample size, but
Now I'll admit drafting is kind of one of my weaknesses here. But I'm not going to let that stop me. Multi, you are going down, sir.
no, you're going down.
In this match, we will cast this. Hopefully, right after this episode for all of you that are live here.
Yeah.
But
Well, we'll try and be fairly snappy as we go through this, since I know especially for like audio people, long silences is not super interesting. Anyways, so
Yeah,
because
hey.
they're doing this, I get to be the one that picks the map, and of course in Gizmo fashion, I didn't tell them beforehand. So we're going to be on Sky Temple for this draft. I'm flipping an imaginary coin right now. Multi, call it in the air.
Heads.
I feel like I'm the lower seed here.
It is tails. So Gizmo gets
Okay.
to first pick, first ban.
You'd have picked that.
And what map is it?
It's Sky Temple.
Okay. Okay,
So,
I'm good.
all right.
Well, you got to state your ban.
yeah, you gotta actually ban something.
I am going to ban. Who do I want to ban?
I would suggest a hero.
Yeah, that's probably a good one. I am
How
going
about a map?
to
Sky Temple.
ban Tassadar.
All right. Tass is banned.
I actually feel like an AI Tass would be pretty darn good. So
Yeah. Well, I am going to ban just because I think he's just a generally good ban across the board, even after previous nerfs. Ragnaros still.
okay, and I'm going to have a quick first pick here and pick Falstad up.
Ah,
Ooh.
I was so going to do that one.
Of course, the reason I'm picking Falstad up here, global Sky Temple. OP.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
We
Makes
get
sense.
it. We get it. So then it's coming over to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Two
you got
picks?
two. You got two.
That's all right. Well, we're locking in Brightwing for similar reasons. Also, to
Okay.
make sure that you don't get that Falstad Brightwing action that I think we actually cited as being really good on the episode that we first talked about Sky Temple back in the day.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. And then my next pick, just because it's a map where you're kind of focusing on those points, maybe need a little poke in the corners, I'm going to go with Li Ming, also just because I like her.
Okay. No, she's good. She's a mage. She does good damage. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. For my next two picks here, I am going to pick up Malfurion
Okay.
and Dahaka.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so Gizmo's really going
I'm going global meta for this.
It's going global.
Yeah. Going global. All right, Multi, you have a ban.
All right, let's see. He's going global with a couple of them. He has got, remind me one more time, we got Dahaka, Malfurion, and Falstad? Yes. Okay. With Dahaka as not a full-on tank necessarily, I mean, yeah, he can main tank. I think that you could also benefit from a little bit of extra beef on the front there, so I'm just going to ban out Muradin. Get that guy out of the way.
Okay.
And I will choose to ban out Mr. ETC.
Okay. Similar
All right.
reasoning,
Wow.
sure.
So we've already taken a few of the tanks are gone now. So Multi, you have two.
All right, let's
Two
see
picks
here.
now. You got a
Two
healer and a
picks.
damage.
Yep, got the healer, got the damage. Let's see here. Sorry for the blank time here.
You
Trying to decide on a couple things.
Multi, there's one that I can't believe you haven't picked up yet.
No helping it here.
What?
No alluding to.
No. Why would I do that? Whispers in the dark, Gizmo.
I think I may know what you're hinting to, but I'm not gonna take the bait. I'm not gonna buy it. Let's see here. Definitely need a tank. I'll go Diablo tank.
Okay. I like Diablo.
Can't go wrong with Diablo. And then I kind of want someone just scrappy to kind of get in the fights. Let me see. Much as I love some of my specialists, I just don't know. Let's go for funsies. Let's go Valera.
Okay. There's a few squishy people on Gizmo's team, and plus, I'm actually really excited to see how good AI Valera is.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Or maybe how terrible. We'll see.
It'll be because typically AI versus AI are great with skill shots.
True.
But it'll be interesting to see
But strategy, not so much.
That yes, and
Sometimes.
also how well AI would be versus seeing a stealthy to take out. So that will be interesting here.
Well, I was thinking not from the AI perspective, but more from, the perspective of these fights often break into different groups, and Valera is just a good scrapper in like 2v2s.
The isolator. Yeah,
Yep.
she's good.
Okay.
As long as she doesn't run to the middle of Mortal and 1v5 their entire team like AI Rhaegar does.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
Notice
not
we
still
didn't pick
salty
him.
from last time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
Right,
So
Gizmo, two picks.
two picks here. I am going to go with Zarya.
Ooh, okay.
And who do I want to round this off with? I could use. Oh man. I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna go with.
Just do it. Just do it. I don't know what you're thinking, but you got this.
I'm gonna go with Alarak.
Okay.
Alright, interesting. Okay. All right, so I've got a lot of people that it's just the one pick left, right? Just me, just the one.
Just you.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got
Well,
some CC. I've got plenty of damage between Li Ming and Valera, and then Brightwing could do her thing as well. I'm actually I'm thinking I kind of need a solo laner. Kind of need someone that can just hang, and I'm torn between a couple. Yeah, but I'm just my gut is just telling me maybe it's not the most meta pick necessarily, but someone who can chain some CCs with this, someone who can wave clear on their own a little bit, certainly solo lane. I'm going Rexar.
Interesting. Okay.
hmm
Okay.
I almost picked Nazebo.
Okay.
I was like, Nazebo would work for this too, but
I was wondering if you'd pick the Zebras, but
I really thought about it. That was my runner up, but let's try
okay.
Rexar out.
Okay.
I do love me
All
some
right.
Zebras.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So we have Team Multi, Brightwing, Li Ming, Diablo, Valera, and Rexar versus Team Gizmo on with Falstad, Malf, Dahaka, Zarya, and Alarak. And this is going to be on Sky Temple. So we will we will be actually performing the game right after the show. And so twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm for the VOD for audio listeners if you want to see how it ends up. And of course, we'll have a recap of it next week.
Yeah, and we'll also get that up on YouTube as well. But real quick here before we move on, just kind of a recap of our thoughts for our team here. So I'll go real quick. Falstad and Mal for my first two pickups. Falstad, obviously, I love his damage, and the global is really good for Sky Temple. Whether AI will use that, we'll see. In Malf, obviously a super solid support hero right now. Probably the top tier support, arguably. For Dahaka, I typically wouldn't have necessarily picked him up this early, but with it being Sky Temple, I kind of just wanted to take that away from Multi. That global there, since he already had Brightwing, I wanted to keep that advantage. And then Zarya and Alarak, I wanted something else to go with Dahaka here, and I needed some more front line. So I like her with her shields to kind of help potentially protect against that Valera, as well as hopefully kind of showing her vision with the Q there. And then Alarak to kind of allow Zarya to be a shield bot while putting out some damage and having another front line, because Zarya isn't necessarily a solid front line. I was struggling between Alarak and a Gul'dan, but I kind of wanted a melee assassin to get in there to be able to also take advantage of those shields.
Sounds good. Sounds good. My reasoning was first pick, of course, I had to go with Brightwing more to just prevent you from having the Falstad Brightwing in this case. And then, yeah, if you had to Haka down the road, you would have had all the globals. Perhaps instead of Li Ming, I could have gone to Haka as well, just to lock down the two. I mean, it's your two globals to my one.
Globals.
Which is okay. Globals. You got lots of globals there. And so I'm slightly concerned about that, but not too much, because Li Ming is good. She's just one of my favorite heroes these days. And again, just the ability to poke when you're on those points. When I play her on Sky Temple, I personally try to go more of a W build, a little bit more Arcane Orb in there. I don't know what the AI is going to do, but just any chance that I'm able to hang back and really poke in big AoE like she can, we're going to see some good stuff out of that. Diablo is just one of the solid tanks that was left, and again, just decent. I'm also trying to set up a sequence of events that I hope the AI is able to pull off, in which both Diablo and Rexar can peel for Valera, because I feel like Valera is a good isolator by herself, kind of as we talked about, and then she's good in the little scrappy 2v2, 3v3s that'll happen in this map, and of course the group fights as well. But if someone's able to actually peel for her as she's in there doing her thing, like if she starts the stun, and then Rexar comes in with Misha, Diablo throws that target over his shoulder with overpower, then Shadow charges it back, and Valera's chasing him down. Like I've got all these dream scenarios playing out in my head of how this is going to work, and I'm almost certain
always
none of it
works
will.
out exactly like you think it will, Multi.
Yeah, exactly.
Always works out exactly like you think it will.
Anyway, so we've got Diablo's Apocalypse to compensate for all this as well. So I'm just hoping to, again, maybe you won't even take it. But the whole thought process is being able to lock someone down hardcore in these group fights, get that one pick, and then just be able to push them out from there.
Okay.
Cool.
TBK, real quick here. Who are you giving it to?
It's from a straight comp perspective. I think I would give it to Gizmo's team.
Just a little more meta.
Well, I mean,
It's
the power of
weird
two
comp.
globals is extremely strong
For sure.
on this map. He's got some very good staying power on shrines between Zarya, Dahaka, and Alarak, who's fairly beefy in and of himself. Lockdown is pretty good as well. Being able to have two people at almost any place at any time is extremely, extremely powerful for this map. You lose a shrine fight. Okay, now Falstad and Dahaka are now pushing top. Crap.
Right.
And right wing, yes, she's got a global, but she's a little more limited than both of them are just because she has to teleport to an actual hero. And I would not consider her a super good solo support currently, just because of the type of meta we're in. There's not a ton of burst on Gizmo's team, so she might do decently for it, but just she has no on-demand type healing like Mouth does,
Right.
until she takes Blink Heal. So, and that's not super high, and it also potentially puts her into danger as well if she's having to go in to heal somebody rather than blinking out to heal somebody. So I'd say overall Gizmo's team from a draft perspective, I think would have it. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to, honestly, the AI Valera in the actual
Yeah,
game.
probably.
Honestly, I think
See if she can get back to that Falstad.
I think she'll be one to watch.
As long as she does better than Tracer, we'll be all right.
All right. Well, again, we will cast that, see how it goes, and fingers crossed, see if Multi stays undefeated or if we all go to 1-1. TBK, what do you got for community content this week?
So this week, two quick things. The first is a set of fan-made skins. There's some really freaking cool stuff in here, and I'll link it in the show notes, of course, and chat. We've got like a Deathwing Brightwing skin, which is incredible.
So good.
An Arthas Anubarak skin, which is really cool. Orc Sonya, and then a old god, the Shah, Asmodan.
Mm-hmm. The
very, very cool concept.
The Zul'jin's kind of neat.
Yeah, there's some cool Zul'jin ones too.
It's missing eye with like an arm, like a mummy arm bandaged up. So
kind of like the WoW version ish, I guess.
Yeah, just showing his injuries.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, some really cool stuff in there. I would love, but I want the Brightwing Deathwing skin. That just looks really cool. I want it now. The other one, and I know I've been talking about Arthas a lot, and I've been playing a ton of Arthas, and he's really good. Tempo Storm's own warrior player Fury has just put out a very thorough Arthas guide, video guide, and I wanted to shout it out because I watched it and it was really good. So definitely check that out. We'll have the link to that in the show notes as well.
Very cool.
Very cool.
All right, some emails, some feedback. We have a email here from Alessandro just in regards to a question we had last week. Some feedback on that. Multi, why don't you go ahead and read that?
He writes, this was with regard to the conversation about she. I apologize. Okay, so she writes.
Remember, we never do genders.
Actually,
Gizmo.
yes, that's very
you
dangerous.
get in trouble. You get in trouble.
True. I get in trouble all the time.
It is the internet. It is the internet.
Good point. So it writes.
They.
This individual writes. This was again talking about whether or not in esports we should be using people's gamer tags or their actual real life human names, like Kevin Ellis. That's mine. Anyway, it writes, I'm okay with players using gamer tags. In fact, I prefer them. They're usually more interesting and there's a reason for choosing it, and they're easier to remember than something the parents and random family history have produced. Some are better than others, but better than some nickname that media gives to like a basketball or football player already. Thinking like Ocho Cinco.
Meta world peace.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of echoing some of my sentiments from last week. Certainly, I like it. I think it gives us our own kind of feel.
I'm glad this topic got brought up again because obviously I wasn't here last week, and it's a really good question, and I kind of wanted to go through my thoughts on it. So
Sure. Please do.
I like it in the fact that it is unique to us. I personally, and this is probably just because I'm a gamer, it is easier for me to remember tags and handles than it is names. But at the same time, and this is actually something I struggled with deciding what to do starting a podcast, so becoming, a public figure in the community, whether I wanted people to know me as Gizmozord, because that's what they would see me in game, Twitter, all that type of stuff, or as Greg Parker. And that's kind of why I continue to introduce myself at the top of the show as Greg Gizmozord Parker. It kind of is a split in between here. And I think that's kind of what I think it should move to, because I think it's important to have the actual people, especially as players, professional players, known, as well as the more esports wants to become legitimized, be more accepted in the overall viewership and world, because I imagine it is to non-gamers, whenever this is shown on ESPN, Heroes of the Dorm, to be hearing people, referred to as talking trees and prismaticism, dreadnought.
Right.
There's no face to that. And while a name wouldn't necessarily give a face to it, and names may be more difficult to display in game, as well as, people that aren't professional players, not wanting to get crazy and have everyone's real name showing. It's a difficult thing to do, but I think the more the esports become legitimized, that's a direction that we could possibly see it move in. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I think that's kind of similar. We hadn't even talked about the fact that we actually applied this to ourselves when we first started off with this. Like, it was one of the first decisions we made on the show was, are we going to go by our real names or our Zord names?
Yeah.
But we're Zords. We kind of had to run with that, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, anything else I want to do, like if I decided I wanted to do a podcast that wasn't about gaming, and now all of a sudden I'm going by Greg over there, having the weird connection. It's a weird thing. And of course you have like Pat Crane, Scott Johnson, who of course do other shows that aren't gaming. But then you have people that do go by their real name. So it's a very interesting topic, and it'll be interesting to see where that what direction that does head. Sure. We also have a couple iTunes reviews here. Multi, why don't you go ahead and read off the first one from Mr. Mouse Divided.
Mouse Divided. And yes, can I say he writes because we know it's a he? Or should I call him it?
You can.
Okay.
I'll leave the risk up to you.
Okay, yeah, I assume all risk on this. All right, Mouse Divide has been around for a while, though, so pretty sure it's a he. Anyway, he writes, this show is great and loaded with great information about heroes. Keep it up. So, thanks, man.
Yeah. And
We'll
another
try.
one from XXL Epic.
XXL Epic writes, I am a HOTS enthusiast and listen to every Heroes podcast. This show seems to string seamlessly from HGC, pro scene to casual play and everything in between. This podcast is one of the few that can appeal to veteran players and new players in the same show. Every podcast has structure and bullet points. It doesn't fall off topic a fraction as much as other podcasts. And that's what I love the most. 100% Heroes content that covers all aspects and angles. And I appreciate that, but man, my favorite thing is falling off topic. That's my favorite.
It's one of those things you want to find a balance,
right?
Because it's fun to kind of go on little tangents, but at the same time, staying on topic, because you guys are listening to us for a reason. So we want to show some personality, yet stay informative. So we appreciate that. Thank you both for the iTunes reviews. We really do appreciate that. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this week, Multi. Before we go, why don't you go ahead and let people know where all we can be reached?
Well, it wraps us up, except we still have that Lord of the Drafts. So stay tuned. But anyway, we can be reached several different ways. We can be found in-game by typing /join space LOTS, or you can join our Discord, which is sticky to the top of our Twitter, at Lords of the Storm. We're on twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm, live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central. You can also check out our Facebook, facebook.com/Lords of the Storm podcast. You can email us with feedback or questions, lordsofthestorm@outlook.com. And if you want to help out the show, there's a couple ways to do it. You could certainly leave an iTunes review, like the two that we just mentioned. And it had kind of been a while since we'd had one, so we really appreciate those. Also, Stitcher reviews, any kind of positive reviews out there. But also, if you want to help out the show even further, we do have the Patreon at patreon.com/Lords of the Storm, where, kind of like Gizmo said earlier, there's no obligation at all. But if you feel this is worth your time and that you want to throw a little bit at us, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. You can also find us individually. You can find myself on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all those things at Gizmozord, as well as Convert to Raid presents the BattleNet News. We are still the BattleNet News, because if you go to battle.net, it still takes you to the website, so we're still golden, which, of course, is the World of Warcraft focused podcast that also covers all things Blizzard. And I just realized my voice sounds so much more radio-centric when I'm sick. Maybe I'll just stay sick all the time.
Just stay sick, yeah, dude.
All the time. Multi, where can you be reached at?
Maybe I should get sick because I'm radio-centric anyway. I'm on Twitter at Multizord. I'm also on another show called The Cavalry, which is an Overwatch podcast, at The Cavalry Show on Twitter. I do have to say, though, I announced it this week on the show. I'm actually going to be stepping down as one of the consistent co-hosts of the show. I really have a lot of reasons for it, and I get into it a little bit more there. And certainly next week, which is my last official week on the show as like a consistent co-host, I still am going to hop on and off. But it's mainly life stuff. You know, I've got a lot on my plate now, and I've got more coming on my plate down the road. So it's just trying to balance it out. Something had to go, and so I'm still gonna be a part of that community, do everything. But just letting you guys know, it's kind of a somber thing. But I'm not gonna be the
kind of
main announcer over there.
A sombra thing.
Somber
Yep,
thing.
somber.
That's
thing.
the title of your next week's episode for your last a sombra episode.
There you go.
Yeah, that may have to do it. But yeah, I'm going to be at the KC Game On event this weekend. If you're in the Kansas City area, go to kcgameon.com. It's a local LAN thing. I'm just kind of checking it out, seeing what I think, kind of networking up there. And I've planted myself, because you get to bring your own computer and you get reserved seats and stuff. I've planted myself in a League of Legends centric room. And don't worry, I'm just going to sit there and play Heroes the whole time. So it's going to be a good time.
All right, and TBK, how about you? Where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at TBKZord and twitch.tv/TBKZord, where I stream occasionally, but mainly right now, Masters Class, Sundays at 7 Pacific, 9 Central, if you want to come and learn from some high-level players as we do strategy talk, replay analysis, and draft stuff.
Absolutely. We want to give a special thank to our patron producer, Mr. Ouroboros Zord, for helping support the show. We really do appreciate it, man. Until next week, that's going to do it for the show. If you're live, stick around for Lord of the Draft. We'll get that going. And we'll see you all next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central.
Enough. I shall do no more.